Welcome to the Alpha Pickleball Podcast, where we slice through the noise to bring you the juiciest insights, strategies, and stories from the dynamic world of pickleball. Join us as we serve up engaging conversations with top players, coaches, and enthusiasts, giving you an ace perspective on all things pickleball. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just stepping onto the court, get ready for a volley of knowledge that'll elevate your game to alpha levels. Let the rallies begin.
All right. Welcome again to the show. I'm your host, Tats. Today's guest is Gabe Joseph, pro pickleball player, coach. Look forward to chatting. Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember first seeing you, I think, you're playing, I guess, singles at that time, mostly, I think. But you're flying around the course, smoking everything as hard as you can. I mean, I'm assuming you play tennis, coming up.
I did. Yeah. I grew up playing tennis since I was about 4 years old. I was just kind of an all-around athlete. So I played baseball, basketball, tennis, paddle tennis, since I was a kid, and I just happened to be better at tennis. But my whole, life until pretty much high school, I played all sports. I even played high school basketball, and then I'd play tennis in the spring. But yeah, always just flying around the court. I love cardio, so I love running and stuff. So I love just to run around, fly out there.
Yeah. I mean, how far did you take tennis?
I was just a good junior, and then I kind of got burnt out a little bit when I got to about 12, 13. And then I had offers to play college, and I just decided not to and just go to school. So I graduated during COVID from Cal State Northridge with my bachelor's, and just went to school and just worked and taught, and then worked at a tennis shop, and just that's it. I was just going to Cal State Northridge, just commuting, going back and forth. So just chose the grind life, I guess.
Hey, and how'd you find pickleball?
So you want the full long story, or the short condensed version?
Well, whatever. Give me the entertaining version.
So I first heard about it in 2016. I always tell a story. So it was around Christmas time. One of my dad's family friends calls me up, and he was playing at the Sports Academy, which is now the Mamba Academy in Thousand Oaks. And he's just like, hey, come try this game called pickleball. And at the time, I really had no idea what it was. And then we were playing it in an indoor basketball court, just kind of, very janky. And I was like, all right, whatever, this is cool. Then I never played again until November of 2018. And the way that came about was one of my tennis buddies, his name was Eric Lee. He grew up with Christine McGrath. And we were playing tennis when we were playing a lot of live ball and stuff. And it was like me, Julio, runs Santa Monica Pickleball, and Jesse Irvine and Scott Crandall, a senior pro. We were all just playing tennis and paddle tennis for fun back in the day. And Eric one day tells us, he's like, dude, I always see you guys playing paddle tennis like for fun. Why don't you guys try to play pickle? He's like, my friend Christine plays pro pickle, and she makes a few bucks, like not a lot, but it's better than nothing, and better than you guys just going out to Venice playing for free. So we're like, okay, like, well, we'll go out and try it. So we just went to like Memorial Park in Santa Monica, and we just started playing, open play. And I didn't even have a paddle. I was just showing up, just playing. And then when January of 2019 hit, me and Scott just started entering like 4 or 5 doubles tournaments and just started playing. And I mean, honestly, we had really great success. I feel like we had no idea what we were doing at the same time. Like, I was just a tennis player playing tennis on the pickle court. And obviously I like transition and found the soft game and stuff. But I mean, I had no idea. Like, if you had told me back then, like, I was gonna be, a top 5 or top 10 pro and win these titles, like, and even just stick with pickle, I would have thought, you were insane. But it worked out.
Yeah, what kept you hooked?
That's a great question. I would honestly say, you know, I got very lucky and fortunate. I think this was April of 2019, and I was playing singles at Memorial. I forgot the name of the tournament that was at the time, but it was like the Santa Monica Open or whatever it was called. And I won a singles tournament, and a representative there for Electrum basically wanted to sponsor me on the spot. And then he fell back after like a week and was like, "Oh, let me send you a paddle first, see if you like it." And then like I think I won another tournament with Scott up in Santa Barbara, and then he's like, "Okay, for like we're gonna sponsor you." I think he followed up with like, "Hey, do you like the paddle?" And he's like, "All right, great, we're gonna sponsor you." So I was basically at the time, I think it was just expenses covered and prize money matching. So I was like, "Dude, this is great! Like I get to play this. I'm in college. Like it's paid for." I'm like, "This is great." So I think that was. I'm not going to say the decision maker, but it alleviated that pressure knowing like, all right, I get to basically free roll and play for free, you know? So it gave me the opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in instant feedback, right? You're in the sport, you play for it a bit, and then you're already getting the recognition.
Yeah, I mean,
That,
honestly, I think I was what four months into it, you know, and I remember I was using a Selkirk paddle I bought from the same family friend who invited me to play at the Mamba like 6 years ago or in 2016. I bought like a Selkirk for like $30 off of them. And I mean, again, I had no idea what I was doing, you know, so it was great. And I was like, great, this being provided with this opportunity, so might as well take advantage of it.
yeah, and it's like you get credit, right? You work from 4 to 12, and it's hard to get noticed in tennis, but you get credit for past work.
Totally. So yeah, it was nice. And I mean, looking back, the timing was immaculate. You know, I couldn't have timed it any better.
Yeah. So what came easy for you? What's been harder?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
What's come easy for you in terms of pickle, and what's been harder?
Oh, good question. I mean, in general, I would say the singles game came pretty easy, I would say, because a lot of my tennis game translated. That being said, I mean, you know, as a coach myself, there's a lot of still nuances I could figure out and master, you know, I would say like more cat and mouse and more of a drop game in singles. I tend to just kind of rip. And then I would just say overall, I feel like the doubles is there, but I haven't quite mastered it to the extent I would like. But I would also say I probably don't train it as much either, so that's the big factor. Um, but yeah, I mean, in general, I would just say the doubles game and probably just like hand speed, I think could get a little better too. So, I would say those few things, you know, have are definitely came a little harder in this game than I would have expected.
Sure. I mean, teaching, you teach pickleball now, right? You play tournaments, you teach. I mean, what sort of things do you teach? Like what sort of fundamentals? Because when I see pickleball players, there's a lot more variety of how people do things compared to tennis. There's not as many ways, whereas pickleball it seems like there's many different ways. There's more different shots or situations. Whereas tennis seems like, okay, these are the grips, these are the paths, and this is your footwork.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I try to keep it simple, you know, just really show them the fundamentals to master it and really explain the game and give them strategy, you know, and you know, just really, I would say mastering the fundamentals, you know, knowing why you want to speed this ball up versus not. Like when you're in the mid court, you know, and you get a ball that maybe you think you want to rip and speed up, maybe you actually want to play it soft and just settle for getting up to the kitchen. So little things like that and knowing when to drop or drive. And, you know, it also just depends on the clientele too and what they're looking for. You know, we're fortunate, like I'm in a pretty nice area. So some people just, are more fortunate and well off and they're just like, hey, I heard pickleball and they just want to play for fun and have a good time. So it's also depends on the clientele and what they're looking for. And you know, that being said, I also have my handful and fair share of people who, you know, are hooked and just want to get better. And even if it's not at a pro level, they want to go from 4.0 to 4.5 and okay, you know, and then I have the clientele that just wants to play against me and play games and whatnot. So, but the basic things I teach to answer your question, or I would just say, is mastering the fundamentals and strategizing, you know, but again, keeping it not basic, I would say, but just simple. I think simplicity is elegance in my opinion. So I don't want to like clutter their brain, but show them certain things like why you want to do this versus doing what you may think is right, you know, because I always feel like in pickleball, sometimes whatever you think may be right, you should almost do the opposite sometimes if that makes sense,
Give
you
me
know.
give me an example of going the other way.
Just, you know, maybe trying to speed up balls that just aren't attackable, you know, like a dink that's just, you know, let's say I'm exaggerating, but like maybe by your ankle and you're trying to speed it up, you know, from so close to the net. Like it's just not possible, and just doing things that aren't feasible in my opinion. But and it's one of those two when you're teaching and coaching, I can be up at the kitchen and just like put the ball away and they kind of learn like, oh, that's why that doesn't work. Sometimes you have to show them, you can't just really tell them. Um, so things like that, and I love it. And I feel like I'm doing my job well when my clients come up to me and they tell me like, oh, I was playing a game the other day and I can hear you in the back of my head saying, oh, I should have dropped that. I should have reset that or done this and that. So, it's nice knowing that you have an impact in that in a weird way, you're doing your job. So
Yeah. I mean, I noticed that, people that do a lot of coaching have a certain eye to see what different people do, whether they're beginners or even more advanced. When you're on the tour playing, what sort of things you see that you like in terms of what other people do?
sorry, say that one more time.
I said, what do you see that other people on the pro tour do that you really like?
Hmm. Um, Man, that's a good question too. I would honestly say to go back to your question too, it'd be like more things I'm trying to work on. So learning from them, like, when they're on the dead run, for example, in singles, why they choose to maybe kind of like throw kind of a drop, like a drop, like a roll back in the court, whereas opposed I've tried to be the hero and slap shot a winner from on the run. Um, so I would say learning little things like that and just seeing the discipline that they have as opposed to maybe why I bail out and take the other route, certain things like that, if that makes sense. But I you definitely learn and especially when you're trying to scout, see what they do well or just pick up on their patterns. So I would say more of that. Because I would definitely say that's something I'm trying to implement and work on is softening up a little bit when possible or needed instead of just kind of trying to go for constant pass shots and ripping. But singles is a funny game. It's a game of runs and also it's matchups too at the end of the day. Because you see someone like Kwong who just constantly rips, from both wings. And I don't feel like he has the capability of the variety, but I think he sticks with the ripping. You know what I mean? So just
Yeah. Yeah, you said matchups. Interesting. So, like for instance, one person could beat another person, but doesn't mean it works. When you add a third or fourth person, depending on their skill set, the wins and the losses could come differently because of how it fits in with pickleball strategy and all that stuff.
totally. I think matchups are a big thing, and that's why you got to pick your partnerships wise and who you gel with. I mean, there's a lot I think that goes into it. It's almost like when you're drafting a basketball team or any team, team aspect, like you can have a great set of individuals, but it doesn't mean they're going to be and it'll look good on paper, but it doesn't mean they're actually going to gel and provide the results that you may think.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, that I guess that's what makes sports interesting, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's so thinking about that, I mean, some people are very good at certain type of things and they just go all in on that. Some people have a bit more of a diverse approach with that. What's your mindset in developing skill set for singles or doubles? Do you have a strength, you go all in on a strength? Do you diversify or focus on weaknesses? What's kind of your general thoughts around that?
I mean, I try to mostly focus on my strengths, but then also I feel like that could also when that's your main focus too, and that becomes your defense mechanism, meaning like at 8-8, like, am I still gonna go for my shots or am I gonna try the weakness I've been working on? I would say for myself, I probably resort to going what I know I do best. But again, I would say it's situational, moments. And it depends where you are in the court. And like for me, to answer your question, because I can go on a tangent, I feel that I tend to resort to doing what I feel I do best, and that's the shot I'm going to go for when the game's on the line.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, when the game's on the line, if any shot that you can go to, you have to be very comfortable. So if it
Yeah, you
was
got to
a
trust your shot.
weakness, if it was a weakness, but by the time you can do that, maybe it's turned into a strength.
Totally. That's a fair point.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you approach drilling, practicing? What do you focus on? Like, how do you approach that with certain drills or whatnot?
Um, I mean, I'd say when I'm mostly training for singles, especially, I really just try to focus. I would say more on the returning aspect because I'm not so
Mm.
worried about trying to generate offense, if that makes sense. I'm always more worried or concerned about, just getting the ball back to me, right? Because if I can't return and get some volleys in, then it's going to be a rough day. So I do, what I call a lot of serve and return games where I'll serve a whole game. If you and I were playing, I'll serve a whole game to 11. We'll do rally scoring, and then vice versa. You'll serve a whole game to 11 rally scoring. So we're both dialing in the serves, the thirds, and then the returns and the first volleys. Just really getting a feel for that, and then just playing games too. I know some people just love to drill and stuff, and I do like to work on things and really dial in certain shots. But really, I would say just return and playing games is kind of my methodical way of practicing and drilling.
Yeah. I mean, is it because singles is a little bit more like heavy on the serve and the return side, whereas so that works because most of the skill set and the practice is condensed in that area.
Totally. And then when I do practice doubles, I mean, I would say, really focusing on drops, resets, and just hand speed for myself. And then again, probably, I mean, I feel like we're all guilty of it. We probably drill and do stuff for 15, 30 minutes, and then we just get right into games. It's just one of those you get like sucked in and it becomes almost tedious or boring, I guess, to an extent. But um, you asked, I answered. I'm just being transparent.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
I'd
uh,
be lying if I sat here and told you like, oh yeah, I drill for an hour and just do dinks cross courts for 10 minutes. I'd be lying to you.
yeah, for sure. Tournament prep, what do you do?
Oh, great question. Probably not the best at it. I should get better. Again, being one of the pros that works full time, I don't get there the earliest. So typically, to give you an example, let's say, I'm playing Thursday singles. I'll probably get there midday Wednesday and straight from the airport, I'll go to the venue, practice for a little bit, get some reps in, and then dinner in bed. Honestly, pretty easy, nothing, crazy. And then morning, just breakfast, stretch, and then off to the venue and practice. If we start at 10, I'm on the courts by 9, just warming up with, whoever I lined up for that day. And then tournament time, and then just play, just stay hydrated. I don't really go crazy with the meal preps or anything. And just have a good dinner the night before. And then in the morning, just like coffee and some fruit and just go out there. And I just really just drink water and play. I don't get too crazy with it. And um, yeah, that's kind of it. I feel like I got to get better at honing down on traveling and everything, but I just feel like life gets in the way and it's not always the easiest to juggle two schedules.
Yeah, for sure. You coach a lot. Does coaching help your pickleball game or takes away?
Um, so I would say it helps, but also I would say it doesn't, how do I say, it's good being on the court per se. Um, but also, you know, I've never also had like a real job where I've just been like at an office and desk all day, and I don't think I could ever do it, or at least in the near future. So I feel like just getting some touches in and for me it I would say it helps. I think that's my persona and my personality. Like I love being around people and helping people get better. And I'm an outdoorsy person. I mean, it's a beautiful day in Calabasas. It's 80 degrees and sunny. Um, and I don't know. I definitely. I mean, listen, I'm not always like giving lessons to super super high level players. I mean, I do have a handful of high level players, so that helps just to even get some touches in. Um, but I mean, definitely being on the court, X amount of hours is grueling and tiring on the body. And being a director, like I'm also doing teaching, and then I'm doing running all the programming and being at a desk a little bit. So it's a lot. It definitely takes a toll, and it's also just a natural pressure that you're going to have from having a job as well. So, um, I would say all of it takes a toll, but it also doesn't hurt, I guess, but it maybe doesn't also help. I don't know, somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. Your coach, obviously people the people in your area, they can work with you. But if they're not and they're evaluating coaches, because there's a lot of coaches out there that may or may not be good for your game, what considerations should someone take when selecting a coach?
I would just say like anything else, right? I mean, just do your due diligence. And just spend a few minutes. I mean, I look at it in two ways, right? You can get kind of the former player or pro or whoever that teaches on the side or does that, which is great. If you get the person who just teaches for a living, just make sure that, I'll put it this way, I would say experience over certification, if that makes sense, right? Because anybody can go apply for their, PTR or whatever the certification is and go to the desert or Palm Springs like for us and go down for a day and go get it. That's kind of meaningless, right? If they're just handing them out like, stickers. So again, just do your homework, look to see if they played tournaments. And if not, like look at their background. Maybe they taught some tennis and they transitioned to pickle and they had high level experience, or they could just be some freaking nut who's just like a Rain Man and knows the game, then great. I mean, those are going to be very far few, but definitely what I'm trying to say is I'd almost look at it the other way. And what are we trying to avoid, right? I would say avoid the 3.0 or 3.5 guy who just spent the day, got a certification, all of a sudden thinks he can teach. That may be great for super, super beginners, but you want to do your due diligence, no other than if you were going to go get a haircut or find a CPA to do your taxes or whatever. You want to make sure you're getting your money's worth. If that's the experience you're looking for. If you're just looking for a Joe Schmo, there's plenty of them out there. So that would be kind of my philosophy if that kind of answers your question, but I would just say just do your homework.
Absolutely. So that's for a coaching partner, but for a doubles partner, what has been a successful formula for you? What do you look for in a doubles partner?
Yeah, honestly, it's funny. I may not have the best take on this. I really just like to find somebody that I gel with and genuinely like. I remember I said this back some years ago on a podcast. Like, I don't like, right? I could play with somebody super, super good, but if they're a dick, then it just maybe I look at it the wrong way. It could just feel like a business transaction, which is great if you're just all about winning and that's it. I personally like I'm not saying it's all about fun, but I definitely want to enjoy the camaraderie and have that experience of playing with somebody that I can also maybe call a friend and have fun with on the court. So for me, somebody like Blaine Hovenier, who I just met last December, and we played a handful of tournaments, had some decent results, but also I can genuinely say he's one of my friends off the court. And when we're on the court, we have a good time together. We're never like looking at each other like, oh, you messed that up, or why didn't you do that? Like, we look at each other, try to uplift each other. And if we messed up, we'll be like, oh, dude, my bad. Like I should have had, whatever. But I would say finding that in a partner, to be honest. But you have your pros out there who just are all about winning, and I get it. I like to win too, but I also want to have fun while doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Any other tips do you have for pickleball players and sort of anything to do with equipment or training or anything else?
I would just say, make sure you're practicing properly. So I would say also one thing I see working with, intermediates, even high level players transition from tennis, unlearning the bad habits for sure. Definitely try to juice up your paddle, put some lead, put some tungsten tape. You don't want to just use like a naked paddle, in my opinion. You want some free power. Have fun with it and definitely try to play higher, like above your level if you can, if you want to get better. I feel like a lot of people kind of have fun and then maybe they get stuck or plateau with the same group of people and they outgrow, but they feel loyalty, so they just stick with those same people. Like, expand your group, expand your horizons. I would say would be one of my tips as well. But it also depends, what people's goals are. I feel like, too, with our clientele, like it's very social for people. They just want to have fun. It's kind of just their home away from home to get away and relieve stress and pressure. So it just depends on the person as well and what they're looking for.
Great. Perfect.
Thanks for tuning in to the Alpha Pickleball Podcast with Tats. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, rate, and connect with us on social media. Stay alpha on the pickleball court. Until our next session.